Hafa-day. Thank you all for being here today. The Committee on Health, Tourism, Historic Preservation, Land and Justice is now called to order. Today's Wednesday, January 15, 2020, and the time is about 1:04 p.m. Notices for this public hearing were disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on Monday, January 6 and Monday, January 13, 2020. Notice was also published in the Guam Daily Post on Wednesday, January 8th and Monday, January 13, 2020. I'd like to thank my colleagues for being here today, beginning with our Legislative Secretary, Amanda Shelton. Thank you for being here. Senator Kelly Marsh Taitano, Senator Jim Moylan, thank you for being here, and Senator Luis Borja-Muña, thank you for being here, and Senator Terlaje Sidusmasi. We have several agenda items for this hearing today. 6 bills. So I'm grouping the first 4 bills together because they deal with minimum and maximum sentences for different criminal conduct. And those 4 agenda items, the first 4 agenda items are bills number 96-35, Bill 125-35, Bill 97-35, and Bill 143-35. So each of these bills will be more in detail introduced by the sponsors of the bill, but all of them are relative to minimum sentences in different crimes, or the sentencing of different crimes. The remaining 2 agenda items for this afternoon will be Bill 98 and Bill 160. Bill 98 is relative to penalties associated with crimes against tourists, and Bill 160 is relative to pretrial releases for those charged with crimes associated with criminal sexual conduct, robbery, kidnapping, and distribution or possession of controlled substances and mandated electronic devices for bail conditions of certain crimes. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Senator Mary Camacho Torres. Thank you, Senator. All right, and so as I said earlier, the first 4 bills on today's agenda are relative to increasing the minimum and maximum sentencing of crimes of criminal sexual conduct, robbery, arson, criminal mischief. The committee notes that for many of these crimes, minimum and maximum sentences already exist, including life sentences for some of these crimes, and these are all subject to judicial discretion. They are also subject to sentencing enhancements and exceptions that exist in Guam law. So where we have minimum and maximums, we also have Okay, I misplaced that. I'll have to read it later, but we also have provisions of law that make an exception for first-time offenders to the sentencing that's outlined in the statute, and we have provisions that would enhance sentences based on repeat offenders, habitual offenders, vulnerable victims, and other statutes that also change the penalties, and hopefully we can have the Attorney General, Public Defender to clarify these points. But in preparation for this hearing, the committee requested the guidance of the Attorney General of Guam, the Judiciary of Guam, the Public Defender, as to the continued desirability of judicial discretion in sentencing and whether the proposed sentences would deter crime or are equitable and fair, as well as the potential impact of these bills on prison overcrowding. Guidance from these entities is vital to the discussion of these bills and is forthcoming. We also sought guidance from the American Bar Association, which has published its position on mandatory minimum sentences. And if I could just read this very quickly. The ABA, American Bar Association, has urged the U.S. Sentencing Commission on August 7 to include in its 2019 priorities proposals to address the impact of mandatory minimum sentences and to study whether current guidelines effectively encourage the use of compassionate release, when, quote, extraordinary and compelling reasons, unquote, exist. In comments submitted to the Sentencing Commission's acting chair, ABA Governmental Affairs Director emphasized the ABA's lengthy, quote, lengthy and robust opposition to mandatory minimum sentences dating back 50 years, unquote. ABA policy adopted in 2017 reinforced the ABA's position, pointing out that such sentences, according to the report accompanying the policy, are, quote, detrimental to society because they lead to excessive sentences, result in sentencing disparities, undermine the discretion of the judiciary, and punish minority defendants disproportionately, unquote. Sussman also outlined the ABA's longstanding support for development of standards for reduction or modification of sentences based on exceptional circumstances, including but not limited to old age, disability, changes in the law, exigent family circumstances, heroic acts, or extraordinary suffering. The association also urged the Commission to promulgate policy guidance for sentencing courts and the Bureau of Prisons to use when considering reduction of sentences. And of course, we're all here because we are concerned about crime in our island, in our villages. And so we're trying to find a balance of this between, removing discretion in sentencing and imposing maximum or minimum sentences, and or whether even increasing the sentences will deter this crime or protect our villagers more. So that's what we are hoping to find the answers to today. And we will begin with the first bill on the agenda, and I'd like to ask the sponsor to introduce the bill, but if I could first also acknowledge the presence of Senator Clint Rigel. Thank you, Senator, for being here. So Senator Jim Moylan, please proceed on bill number 96-35.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bill 9635 is an act to amend subsection 2515, 2520, 2525, and 2530. All of Chapter 25, Title 9, Guam Code annotated relative to the minimum sentencing of first, second, third, and fourth degree criminal sexual conduct. Bill 9635 would increase the minimum sentencing of those convicted of first, second, or third degree criminal sexual conduct from 15 years to 25, and establishes that anyone convicted of a fourth degree criminal sexual conduct would serve a minimum of 15 years. The current law establishes that a first-time offender may be convicted as a misdemeanor. Bill 9635, we understand that one too many times we see a defendant charged with a first or second degree charge of criminal sexual conduct and then plead down to third or fourth charge. Hence, the penalties could result in several months in prison, inclusive of time served. This legislation, just as the others we will discuss today, are to present a strong message to perpetrators when it comes to serious crimes such as criminal sexual conduct, that enough is enough. Some may say that these penalties are too excessive, or that our prisons are overfilling, or even that they may not benefit those who can't afford a top-notch attorney. The reality is that as a government, this is not the response we can give those victims, especially children. We hope to generate a healthy dialogue on these issues today. I look forward to the presentations, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Moylan. I'd also like to note for the record that in addition to those noted earlier, we also have requested the feedback for this bill from the Guam Police Department, Child Protective Services, victims advocates reaching out, the Guam Coalition Against Sexual Assault, and the Guam Bar Association, and of course the public. So now we will accept testimony from anyone who wishes to provide testimony on this particular bill, number 96. Former Senator Chief Ishizaki, you may proceed.
Madam Chair, Senators, thank you for allowing me to speak before you. You know, I think we need to be tough on crime, and I think we deserve a safe community, certainly. But I gotta also caution you that when people get convicted of crimes, you know, the pretrial detention and then post-conviction confinement, Department of Corrections, and I speak for the Department of Corrections,